How's it going, guys and gals? Everybody hanging out in quarantine? That's good. I feel like I've been invited to Zoom meetings and I've been subjected to all the different YouTube channels that I watch and their version of entertainment for the masses during this weird time. I just felt like maybe I could give everybody an update with what I'm doing here on the at the homestead now. We've got chicks. I decided that it wouldn't hurt to get the ball rolling on having eggs and even meat in a pinch. I grew up on a farm, so I've had chickens off and on my whole life, and I wanted to get just a couple. You can only get a half dozen at Tractor Supply, and so that's what we did. I got 3 pairs of different varieties. I think there's an Isa Brown in there and Mystic Marin, which is a hybrid, and Buff Orpington, I want to say, is the other breed. That's the top half of the IBC container tank that I actually used the rest of. I actually did. I used the rest of it to create those varmint-proof garden beds that you may have seen in another video. But I've also added some lights to the breed. This is an unheated space that someday will have concrete and a bunch of other improvements. As I stand here in my little flippy floppies, my toes can feel the cold air coming in underneath the vintage doors, which I would never take out of here, although I did want to install a set of pre-hung exterior French doors on the outside of them, the way the front of the building has, to stop all of this draftiness. Maybe you can even see, if I pick the camera up, how you can see outside. That's no bueno. And once again, that has to do with, you can see, maybe you can, maybe you can't, the way that the door slabs are in this opening is indicative of the fact that the opening has racked and gone down on this side. So we're experiencing some foundational shift here. What does that mean? The least I could do was frame in the opening on the other end of the breezeway. This has always had a sliding door on this side, and it was just a rough opening on this side because someday I'd like to have high lifting overhead doors in here, etc. And I just let this sit open for actually several winters, and my heavy duty 3-inch thick MDF has actually got water damage or whatever. It's got texture here from a little bit of snow and water that can come blowing in from time to time. So I quickly framed this up and I threw some secondhand OSB on the outside and a pre-hung door that I already had laying around. I have a few of them. I just used, had a window insert. Actually, this is the window insert out of this window where the spray booth is. Several years ago, I took it out and put a barn fan in there and made that the spray room. So that window fit in here kind of nicely. I already had this door, and I just flashing taped around, and it's good enough. Here's our gardens out there. If you didn't catch that video, go check it out. So then, this is a separate building from the main building. They each have their own foundation, and there's no foundation between them. So this is all just scabbed in wood to the ground. I threw a straw bale there and some insulation, and this is kind of sealed up over here. And we were running the propane tank, or the propane heater in here, which is a nice kind of a clean heat rather than kerosene or anything like that. That'll stink up the place. And all of that was so that we could get the backhoe ready to go back to work. Eventually, someday, they may let us. Last year's barn conversion to pole barn, foundation conversion, I had just got this machine, and I spent the whole time digging with the 18-inch, I think this is, or 20-inch bucket, because that's what was on the machine, and I didn't want to get involved. I already put new teeth on it last year. I think you saw the 2 outside teeth. I did a little bit of maintenance. I put a new hose or 2 on it. But this year, I wanted to move to the smaller bucket that I got with the machine, because it's half as wide. I can double the downforce. I certainly don't need to make holes this big. I don't need to remove that much material when I'm I'm digging small holes in the ground, and I had the bucket. I wanted to throw it on the machine. So we got started, and I had to get new grade 8 bolts. The way that this works is a big fat pin goes through everybody here. This fabricating tube's welded into the bottom of the stick or no, this is the stick, into the bottom of this. I forget the name of this here. But that sticks out into these areas, and then a pin goes through there, and the pin is bolted to the plate, so it holds the pin in place all over. That same construction style is used everywhere here. And there's grease fittings installed into this tube, so that you can fill the tube with grease, pumping the grease in with a grease gun, and the whole thing will pivot real nice. Unfortunately, at this pin, it has frozen from rust. Somebody didn't, that's where the grease fitting goes, but somebody didn't grease this machine for so long and let it sit outside for so long that the grease in there dried out, was worn away with using the machine, water seeped in there, and it froze, which is to say rusted this pin to this here, and you can see how hard I've beaten on that with the sledgehammer and how much heat we poured into it with the oxyacetylene torch. We cut a cold rolled chisel off and welded it to the impact hammer gun and ran that on the air gun with somebody supporting it here with this stick trying to drive him out of there. He's not gonna fucking come out of there, god damn it. So I did cut him off flush on this side, basically, with the Sawzall. Uh-oh. I'm COVID-19 positive now, I guess. Anyway, what does this mean for us? I've applied about as much force to this as I could apply in this location. I'm basically going to unpin the stick from the boom here and there. This pin goes to the hydraulic cylinder. This pin is the actual joint, the knuckle over which this bends. And then I'm going to take this pin out of this hydraulic system here so that the hydraulic hoses can stay right along and attach to the cylinder. And the cylinder can stay attached to this entire arrangement here. And this pin I've already had out. This is the lower one. I'll take him out. So the bucket and all of this wrist and hydraulics and hoses can all just dangle. The boom can stay sticking up in the air, and we'll take the stick and we'll take him away with the pin that's stuck in there, and we'll take it to a press, and we'll pay a la carte for somebody to put a 20 or 40 or 50 or 100 ton press on there from the side. We'll set it in the machine and just and shove that pin out. And then I have a new one coming. It's about $90 from Deere. And we'll put it all back together again. Before that can happen, I need to get in here with the skid steer and hook up to the machine, because as you can see, as it sits here, if I were to even take this other pin out, where is it, the lower pin on the bucket, the whole thing, the whole arm would just collapse down and fall forward on itself, and everything would fall over on the ground here, because it's standing here but for the grace of this assembly. So I've got to hook up to the skid steer so that it'll stand there and that stuff can dangle and lay on the ground or on a chair or whatever while I take this away. So to be able to get in here with the skid steer, I've got to get through here. And what's in the way over here, this is the 460 out of the work truck. It was dripping oil, and it had a manifold gasket leak, so it would, when you were giving it the beans on top of the wonderful V8 sound, you had that awful exhaust ticking sound. And motor mounts are looking their age and some other things. So while we had it out of the engine bay, we were going to do a bunch of service. We were asking a lot of this. We're asking basically everything out of this engine stand. It's like a Harbor Freight special or something here. I think it's rated to 600 pounds, and this engine's like, that's its dry weight or more, 650, 700 pounds or something. So we're really asking a lot of it. It takes a lot of energy to turn on the stand. So long story short, I don't really want to disturb this, and we haven't got a smooth floor in here. I can't roll it real easy. I can't pick it up real easy, and I have no chain fall or anything in here. So first we got to finish the engine service, put the engine back in the truck. Then I can come in here with the skid steer, pick this thing up enough to hang on to it to take it apart. Then I can put that part in the truck that now works because the engine's in it, and take that stick portion of the backhoe with the truck to the John Deere dealer or whomever we find with a press. I have a couple people that I may call to press that pin out, and then I can come back and finish putting the backhoe together. Then it'll be ready to go back to work, and that'll take me, another week or so to accomplish. On top of having built the garden beds, on top of having closed in the breezeway, and on top of, putting in a bunch of lights. Couldn't see a GD thing in here to work in here. It was nice, and my dad had helped out a couple years ago putting in a circuit of ordinary incandescent fixtures, 1, 2, 3, but they came down to a switch that was out in the breezeway, and it was a pain to go out there in the dark and stumble around all of this stuff. So what I did was I put up a bunch of these fluorescent fixtures which really shed some light on everything, and I tried to do it as easily as possible by rearranging the white Romexes, the old existing stuff. The shortest piece that I had coming from the incandescent fixtures made it over and just through the wall. So when I wired the new fixtures up, I took those all the way through the wall in that location and down into the switch box. And then all I had to do is connect everybody in this conduit junction box up there and bring the rest of it down in here. But now I can turn lights on and off from inside, which is really nice. However, you'll notice I really ought to have 2 more fixtures on the left. What happened, Chazzy? Well, taking these secondhand fluorescent fixtures that came out of a friend's work, they're going to convert to the super thin LED drop ceiling fixtures. I got 12 of them for free with bulbs. But to install them, I had the skid steer in here with the bucket and was working on it like a scaffold, which of course there was room here to do. And then I could reach over here with the bucket and do it. But I can't come in here any farther now because this shit's all in the way. I have 2 more fixtures I want to put up and wire in. And that can happen after I put the engine back in the truck, come in here with the skid steer and hang onto this thing enough to take it apart, take the truck, take the part to get that put back together and come back, put this back together. Then I can back this out and set it up and away with the skid steer and take the skid steer off of it and know that it'll sit there, and then put the bucket back in the skid steer, come in here, go up and put those fixtures on the ceiling and wire them in. So this is just all the stuff that's in front of me, and normally I do this in and around working, and clients can get frustrated when you're not there every single day, but sometimes you need to, as a sole proprietor, take care of your equipment and your facility so that you can be there the rest of the time and accomplish the tasks. Here's the rest of those fixtures. Actually have more than I need. The lumber and the temporary lifting beams is all hanging out here, ready to pick that new barn up, or that old new barn, or that new old barn, whatever you want to call it. But there's always more tasks than there is time, and it's almost been a blessing, although not in the strictest sense, but it's been a good thing that we've had some time where we're on pause. Oh, this is another thing I'm going to fix someday, that I don't have to plug him in to get some light on the workbench here, but this is my competition. He's undercut a few of my bids and taken projects from me. And when his sign was floating around the neighborhood, blowing around in the streets, I picked it up, so now I have a trophy. It's a good-natured nemesis kind of a situation. Everybody needs a nemesis or an arch enemy. But that's what we've been doing, and it's what we have left to do. And just a little bit, just the tip of the iceberg. I have even more tasks. I bought these awesome replacement mirrors. This is the factory mirror. I guess this is hard to explain, but they were, painted black and oxidized, and so the rusting happening. So I got a fresh set on my truck, and they are adjustable with a ball and socket joint. Here's the ball. This is the one out of these OE factory ones that came on the truck. Why did I have to dig that all out of there? Because the ball on the new one is made in China, and I don't know if you can see the pot metal garbage. They just throw all their secondhand metal recycling into a pot and let it boil along, and they figure all the impurities boil out or whatever, but they don't. So that's just foamy metal. And I was driving along, and the new mirror just snapped off and rolled away down the street. So now I'm down to calling that company to ask for my money back and taking the original equipment component out to, what do you want to call that? Not a hybrid, but a transplant to the new equipment that's shiny and new and beautiful. Well, it was. And now it's all scratched and shitty because it went down the street. The old ones were all black. The reason I bought these replacements because these are just painted black. And here's my brand new one after it hit the road. So I don't know what's going to come of that, but that's another little mini project we've got going on all over the place. Rebuilt cylinder for the backhoe, like I said before. Staying warm when it's cold out, and then when we've had some high 60, low 70 degree days. We've been outside, even with the new breezeway being closed in like that. We've been leaving the doors hang open because it's been beautiful working weather, but not today. And here sits the truck with the hood strapped down because we got some wind, and I didn't want to see that go blowing down the street. Lots of stuff going on. You got to stay busy. It's not hobbies, it's responsibilities. And support local businesses. We've been ordering once a week and going down for pickup. But, and Katie, she teaches remotely, 3rd grade. And everybody's got all their things that they have to do at this time. I'm not making really any money. I'm doing some designing. Got some cut lists or material cut lists or material lists. I don't know why I keep wanting to say cut lists, but friends, additions, and deck plans and layouts and stuff that I can work remotely and charge for design time, bring in a little bit of income. But other than that, wishing everybody happy and as productive as you can be during this time, and hang in there. Let me know if you have any questions or want to see anything more specifically. I have all the time in the world, basically. So, all right, we'll see ya.